While every other YouTuber is making their Let's Plays on Modern Warfare 2, I simply won't. That's not my thing. I decided to continue my series and answer the question, can you beat Modern Warfare 2 without ever firing a single bullet? Now the first video on my channel was the same video but in Black Ops 2. That was really fun, so let's try the new Call of Duty. Of course, since this game just came out, this is my first run. The rules are simple. Never fire a gun, but also as a side challenge, try to kill as few enemies as we have to. As for Call of Duty tradition, I'm gonna say up front that killing no one is gonna be impossible. But let's see what we actually have to do to get through the run without shooting on normal difficulty. And let's get right into the run because there's a lot to talk about. But a quick disclaimer beforehand, this video will contain massive spoilers about the story. So if you haven't finished the game yet, please do so first and come back to this video some other time. The first real mission is the mission Kill or Capture. And like as nothing, the game already gives me problems. In this house. There are a few enemies inside. Now your teammates can take out most of them, but not all. For example, this enemy stayed alive. But we can just run past him. What's a bigger problem is when my teammate gets injured here. That means that he cannot kill the enemies that are camping in the hallway there. And you need to get in there to continue. Now I have a few tricks up my sleeve, of course. At first I decided to just run into the hallway. Maybe the enemy is skippable. But he isn't. And on top of that, there's a second one right here. So I resorted into my second trick, which wouldn't help here, but was really important in some other parts of the game. I found out that you can push your teammates. It's not as easy as it seems though, because in pretty much every level, your teammates have a certain cover piece where they like to stay for as long as you need to finish the objective. And they won't do anything else. Now what would happen if I were to push my teammate inside the house, all the way up the stairs, and on the balcony to the right? Well, I don't know, because that's not possible. See, you can push them around, but they will quickly slide off of you. And when they are free, they will run back to their original cover piece as fast as possible. Almost as if they don't want to fire their gun. That's not really fair, I'm already doing the challenge. Anyway, my third and last option was to find a way to jump into a window and skip the hallway. It took me some trial and error, but I have found a way that seemed to make the most sense. This place. But as for another Call of Duty tradition, the map is littered with invisible barriers that limit the player. That really sucks, because I thought I had it by jumping on this sunshade. But that is an object where you can clip right through and you cannot stand on it. Okay then, time to make the first kill. Not shoot a bullet, now that would be scary, but we kill this guard with melee attacks. This random lady starts attacking us and we have to take her out as well to continue the mission. Now a golden rule I live by in these runs is to let your teammates do almost all of the work. And a great example of that is when we fight around the crashed plane. Enemies will run towards us and attack us. The beautiful thing is that your teammates can never die in these games. So I don't give a shit about them. My only objective is to stay alive. So I would frequently hide in the plane, run around it or lie behind the plane. It will take you a few tries, but just be patient and not a single bullet needs to be fired here. The next funny part is here. So my teammates are positioned up here and there is one room in this hallway where an enemy is camping with a shotgun. And again, my teammates are once again waiting for me to make the move. But come on guys, I don't want to do this. So I give them a little encouragement by pushing them into the hallway. At first I tried Private Bailey. But I think he's kind of anxious, because it's very hard to actually push him into the room with the enemy. The hallway is doable, but push him to the left and have him not slide off is kinda hard. And every chance he gets, he will run back to his safe position. Coward. So I try Corporal De Fields instead. You'd think that with a higher military rank, he would see that this enemy is a great threat and needs to be dealt with, right? Nope. So we have to use our knife to take out this enemy. Just beware of the shotgun he fires. Now you probably wonder, what is it with you and pushing enemies? Hasn't worked so far, right? Well, a part where that will work is in this garage. There are a few enemies. Upon entering, your teammates will take out a few. But in my case, one will survive. Ghost will run towards a cover piece where he has no line of sight on the enemy. So pushing him really is going to make the difference here. We can definitely see that he is shy and doesn't want to, but I can be persuasive. If we push long enough, eventually the enemy will fire on us both. Now I'm sorry Ghost, but the only thing I care about is my own safety. And for once, he understood. And he took out the enemy. And that brings us to Amsterdam in the mission Wet Work. And this mission is kind of bad for us. Not worst case scenario, but bad. We take control of Gus and our teammate is Captain Price. But upon starting the level, Captain Price leaves to do, I don't know, things I guess. That means it's up to us to take out plenty of guys here. Now let's not waste time, because I have plenty of footage of me just running through the entire level, but nothing worked. At some point, I had a really good strategy. I don't even know where this is exactly, but after running around for 20 minutes, I just found this spot. We can jump from boat to boat, and getting here should be easy, right? Wrong. Invisible barrier again. And I tried this jump about 7 times, just to see if I got unlucky with some random wall or something. But nope, this doesn't work. And the problem is that my objective is to clear the docks and eliminate patrol boats. So no, we're not gonna fire a gun, but we do have to kill some with a knife or a throwing knife. And this irritated me. How cool would it have been if I could get past parts like this without even doing, you know, anything. And when every boat has been dealt with, then Price returns. Like, why? If this happens again, I will demote Captain Price just because it's funny. So next time help me please, or I will make sure that you do. Like in this place. Price can kill the enemies in the boat living room, but one enemy will stay in the bathroom. And Price just doesn't care about him. I push him through the hallway, which is quite hard. Price keeps on trying to escape via the bedrooms, but I won't let that happen. So I push him all the way into the bathroom and he will just ignore the enemy. I even made them have this scene where they are in a shower together and the enemy found it so awkward that he just walked through the wall to get out of there. I mean, honestly, that laugh is genuine because, you know, I do weird runs all the time. And yet, weird shit like this keeps on happening, which is why I found it really fun to keep doing these. But Price's performance here is really not fun. So I kill this enemy myself and I hereby demote this guy to Lieutenant.
Mission failed. We'll get him next time.
Hopefully he can redeem his actions. The mission Tradecraft is really fun for us Dutchies. It's really good to see how they recreated Amsterdam, but nothing really worth mentioning aside from 3 hard enemies that will shoot right here. So we skip to the mission Borderline. Now this part is funny. My teammate Alexandro stays in the back no matter what I do. So what I thought I would do is run inside the house and lure the enemies outside so Alexandro can kill them. But as it turns out, that is way harder than I originally thought. There are just way too many enemies, and I would frequently get sandwiched. But I tried again and again, and at one point I ran right through the house until I found stairs. That seemed like a bad idea since I could get cornered, but whatever, 1 death on top of the other 15 here doesn't matter. But, as it turns out, you actually need to go there. And when you do, the game automatically gives you a checkpoint and starts a cutscene, making the enemies in the house just disappear. Wow, that was lucky. But luck will always run out eventually, and it turns out immediately in the mission Cartel Protection. This level is really hard. The first few corridors are not really an issue since we can push our teammates into a line of sight on the enemies. Eventually they will take the bait and kill them. But the problem arises when we have to run away from the Mexican cartel. And we are on a hill downwards, so the enemies will constantly have the high ground. But the enemies will be stationary in a certain location, which is quite far, and Ghost, Rodriguez and Alexandro have a hard time hitting the enemies. But when you keep pushing them, you can do the first parts. Every time I thought it was over, until new enemies have spawned and the same scene happened 3 times. In the third scene, enemies with RPGs will even spawn in, which is a big problem on its own. But be patient, find enough cover, and your teammates will take care of everything. But the last part of these 4, we turn the tables. We have to go up this mountain, which is full of enemies. The enemies still have the high ground but won't follow us this time. Here we are the ones that are attacking instead of defending. Well, about that, I am the one attacking. My teammates will literally do nothing. At this point they will just hide in cover and wait for you to clean everything up. So at first I thought that they did not have good lines of sight on them or something. And if I were to push them into a line of sight, they would be useful, yes? No. Now you have the cover piece, but they will just stare into the distance of shooting enemies. So I knew that this was going to be a one-man job. And I tried all different kinds of strategies. I tried to go through the middle. There is a convenient wall here on which you can climb. But after doing that, you stand in between 3 or 4 enemies usually. And more are behind them. So in most runs, I couldn't even get to the 2nd floor until I died. Now I call it floor since that makes strategizing way more efficient. So after about 15 resets, I explored the left side. This seemed a lot easier, since this is sort of stairs that will let me move up the entire way to the 3rd floor. And I spotted a small corridor that seems to end the level. And I was right about this. So for a long time, my strategy was to just skip the entire level. But in the end, there were just too many enemies and I kept on dying in the same part. So it looks like I have to go back to the drawing board. Now I also tried going through the middle and run as fast as I can to the left side. But that also didn't work. I also tried the right side and that seemed to make a little more sense. But the problem I would find is this enemy behind the tree. It's not his damage output, the time I am in a line of sight of him. Slowly the damage adds up until I die. And I have to be on max health to get through the last segment here. So this also didn't seem to work. After a long time I tried the left side a few times again. And in one of my attempts, I randomly saw that my teammates get out of their cover and actually start making a few kills. I mean, they're not that many, but still, that is some progress. But why was that? I started to experiment with this strategy and came to the conclusion that if I were to go left and got on top of this rock here, that triggers my teammates for some reason to make the push into this corridor. So I tried to do that with my teammates by my side. And that also doesn't work. I mean, they can make it, but you just take very big damage. So let's elaborate even further. At this point, I have a very intricate strategy. We go left, climb the rock to let my teammates move and make a few kills. We run down again to make it through the right side. When I reach the tree, I would try to find a sneaky heal spot. AKA a spot where the enemies have a hard time hitting you so you can heal to full mid-battle. You have to plan it right, but when the timing is perfect, make a push to the corridor. There is one guy in your way who has opened fire on you. So I have several attempts where I made it until this guy for his target practice on me to start. And I thought, what if I were to kill this guy with melee attacks? Well, I also tried that. But there are 2 problems with that as well. The main ones are that killing him costs time. Not a lot, but 1.5 seconds or so in Call of Duty terms can be a lot. And other enemies would kill me. And the second reason is the deadliest and the reason this entire level sucks. Now I have tried this part around 75 times and I noticed that from time to time it was rather odd that I kept on dying in the same place over and over again. And for the longest time I thought that it were the enemies that I had left that killed me. But as it turns out, there is a death barrier here. Meaning that if I run into this part and the enemies are still alive, you just die. And there is nothing that you can do about it. So all of the strategies I tried to perfect are useless. Now I could also just have said that you kill the enemies here to continue. But I thought I'd paint a picture of how I usually go about doing these runs. While eventually it can lead to devastation. I mean, not really, I'm not gonna fire my gun, but still. Since my teammates will only make a few kills, that means I can only progress if I kill everyone using melee attacks. And doing that is way easier said than done. You can do it, but there are clusters of enemies who open fire at you when you are bashing away. So you have to pick your targets carefully. So after a long time, I can finally continue. The part in the water required about 8 resets, but after that, this annoying mission is finally over. But as a thanks for winning, we can run into a wall. Because the next missions, Close Air and Hardpoint, are a nightmare in this run. We have located the bad guy Hassan, and the team is dropped into this big Verdansk-like valley where they are going to capture Hassan. The problem is the perspective. I cannot take control over the ground team. No, instead we have to help the team by shooting from the air. But for this run, that's a real big problem. Because the only thing that we can do is nothing. But like in basically every other level so far, the game and thus my enemies are waiting for me to do something. So I stared to my screen for about 9 minutes, but nothing happened. And this is the worst case scenario, because we have to shoot. And I don't mean just shoot. I mean that you can never get through this level on only a few shots. And this means that we have failed the challenge. And we will automatically shift to seeing what the lowest amount of shots is that we have to make. So, welcome to hell. We have the choice out of 3 different types of weapons. Big bombs, smaller bombs and a minigun. For our purposes, we are only interested in big bombs, right? So with pain in my heart, I fired a shot. What? It gets even worse. There are civilians here that cannot die. Beautiful! This means that we have to use the minigun. A minigun in a no-shooting run. Fine then. We pull the trigger. It doesn't immediately go off, but it has to start spinning first. So we are going to let go of the trigger the moment it gets off. In my best attempt, this cost me 2 bullets. So already off to a great start. But the one thing this does is make the civilians run away, alert the enemies and get the ground team to attack. But like I said, this is only the beginning. From here on out, every time there is a threat, I can use the big gun to save the number of shots. I got stuck in one place so long that I considered to use the small bombs, but eventually I did find a way. The game wants me to bomb a few barns, a gate and escort the team to Hassan. The good part is that they can make good kills here. But at some point they find Hassan and capture him. And I was really glad to have this part finally be over. But that transitions instantly into the mission Hardpoint, which is basically a continuation of the last level and way harder. There are so many enemies coming. And I mean, I just don't care. But when I do nothing, the team gets overrun and I lose. So even here, we have to fire. I would frequently try parts with 1 bomb, for example, but failed over and over again, just to realize that I would sometimes need 2 or even more bombs. And yes, let's make matters even worse. Because the team gets attacked by RPGs. And if they remain alive, you can never win. But of course, the RPGs are way spread out and you need 3 bombs to take them out. And after that, more rocket launchers spawn who target my ship. Now you can send flares to take out the rockets, but after dying over and over again, I saw that my mission objective is to take out the rocket launchers. So I shot bomb after bomb after bomb. This mission just didn't seem to end. But luckily, after 1 last bomb on the bridge and 1 in a troop transport, it was finally over. And what was the ending number? 27. That's next level bad. And I am really confident in saying that this is the absolute lowest number of shots that you have to fire to make it out of this hellhole. Man, that's unfortunate. I was really hoping that this game that just released could be beaten without firing. And I would be the first to find that out. But unfortunately, no. Let's just see if we can beat the rest of the game without ever firing a bullet from our own gun. And no better way to test this than by trying the mission Recon On Fire. We do some scouting part that is clearly a reference to All Gillied Up from COD 4. And it takes some time. I died one time, but that was my own fault. Now where this level actually becomes interesting is when Lieutenant Price gives you the order to shoot the enemies on my go. But I will never go. So now what? Price will, again, wait for me to do his dirty work. And I refuse, so let's demote him again. Sergeant Price, how does that sound?
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
I guess it's up to me then. So what I do is run down to the camp. Price keeps on yelling that it's not smart and that we are stronger from a distance, but does he still not know that I won't fire my gun? Distance is my enemy. So for now, my strategy is this. Alert the enemy so Price gets triggered to actually do something. This cost me a couple of retries, and every time I had to run all the way down this hill again. I found out that approaching from the left side is a bad idea since one enemy is faced that way. Now through the middle seemed better, but the problem I'd run into is that the enemies were quickly alerted by me and started to chase me. And because the hill is so massive, I could never outrun them. But to outrun them, I need a head start. And how can I make sure that happens? Oh, I know! Throw a flashbang, but don't hit anyone. That would be rude and unnecessary violence. But the enemies will be able to notice you, and with this big head start, it doesn't matter that an entire platoon is chasing me. Price will take them out if you give him time. So that answers that question. We have to search in 2 warehouses. There are multiple ways to enter, but I've found that the most easy and practical way of doing this is by throwing tear gas into the ventilation shaft on the roof. That means that the enemies will run outside, you can hide on the backside of the roof where they can't hit you, and Price can take them out one by one. Good job, Price. Seems like you can do something useful after all. The unfortunate thing is that after these 2 warehouses you have to do another 2. It's too bad that this is my first run and I didn't know this, because I was out of tear gas. This part would have been way easier if I have any left. But you can also do it with C4. In this building it is prominent that you lure the enemies outside so Price can get a line of sight on them. The funny part is that the best cover is this sunshade. The enemies get hits onto you, but it's very unlikely. Now in the cave, Price decides to become useless again. Great. You just hit plenty of shots from 200 plus meters, but an enemy that is basically point blank in front of you is too hard. Right. I will leave this one with a warning, since eventually he will start to hit his shots, but that is only when I push way further into the cave than necessary and having risked my life. But at the end of the mission, Laswell gets captured. And I wish he hadn't, because that means we have to play the mission violence and timing. Now why that sucks is we have to take control over, I don't remember, I think gas? But we are in a plane and we have to attack a convoy. Of course, that means that the run is officially really dead. Because we have to shoot. There's no other way. But what's the minimum? Well, you can get through most of the mission without even firing whatsoever. But there are exceptions. For example, Farah and her crew can take out every enemy on this car except one. When only this guy lives, the crew just stops shooting altogether. So we need 1 bullet for him. I have put my gun in semi-automatic fire mode, so I don't accidentally fire another one. The real problem is the guy with the rocket launcher, who shoots my plane down. He has armor, unfortunately, and we have to attack him quite fast if we want to keep flying. That, and we have to make headshots to drain his health faster. And with every missed shot, I had to reset. So this cost me tons of tries to get right. But in the end, you can kill him with 8 bullets to break his armor and 1 more for the actual kill. Another part where we need bullets is the part where we hang upside down. It looks really cool, but since we have to shoot, it's not. With 2 perfect shots onto this gas tank, you can make the car explode. And then blah blah blah, jump from car to car, and eventually we land in the car with Price again. But this guy says that we have to take his rocket launcher. It's kind of characteristic to make me do everything, Price. 3 shots is enough to take out the enemy in the big truck. Your teammates can do the rest. When the convoy stopped, you can push a little into the enemies, hold your ground, and your teammates will take out the enemies. Thank you, Corporal Price.
Mission failed!
At this point, I think the game takes a weird turn in my opinion. El Sin Nombre is interesting, I guess, with the dialogue options. But I'm still waiting on another game with the branching storylines like Black Ops 2. But for this run, it's the ending that matters. And to be honest, the hardest part about the mission is that for the longest time, I had no idea where the keycard was. But in the end, I found it. And I mean, let's just move on. The mission Dark Water feels really generic, but the one thing that doesn't is kind of at the end, where because of the storm, all the platforms are moving. I believe that's what Call of Duty should do more. It changes the battlefield. In most of these missions, the battlefield we fight in is rather stationary and generic. But this is great. Is what I would have said if I just didn't see this awful water animation. Anyway, no need to get critical, but there is just not much to talk about here. Yeah, you have to push your enemies around a corner a few times, but that's it. I think the mission alone is here to hint to the new DMZ mode that's coming, which I am interested in. It's great, but most of the way kinda easy, since you are not meant to use a gun. Sure, you get a gun at the end, and it does get more challenging, but I'd recommend you to make as much smoke bombs as possible, so the enemies have a hard time hitting you. But we have to talk about the mission Prison Break, for good and bad reasons. The bad reasons reveal itself immediately. There are 2 guards in the tower that have to be killed. I did try to throw a Molotov onto them, but the entire platoon notices you and opens fire. Ghost kills 1, but that cost me an extra bullet. Now Ghost also wants me to shoot this right guard as he takes the left. Luckily, this one can be done by a silent takedown. But the same thing is needed right here. And here you cannot perform a takedown and have to use another precious bullet to get out of there. Fine then. I found the next part intuitive by guiding Ghost through the level. I can command him to shoot, but it's still his shot. To me, this falls into the same category as manipulating my AI teammates to fire shots for me. But right now, I have control over what the AI does. The real fun begins after freeing Alexandro. And for once, I mean actual fun. In this hallway there are 2 guys with riot shields coming. Because they block most of the way, I can't get past them to expose their backs to my teammates. So I tried all sorts of things, like throwing flashbangs and whatnot, but a regular frag is the most efficient here. The enemies are dead, and you know what that means? I can take their riot shield. And at this point the mission is basically over. Yes, we have to escape the prison, which would have been hard, but we have a way to protect ourselves from incoming fire. This means that I have to use my tactic of moving further into the battlefield, so my teammates are more likely to keep up with me and kill more enemies. This part is the most challenging, and yes, it still did cost me 5 attempts, but you basically want to go right, lure the riot shield man towards you, and then jump via this thing to get behind him, and you start to run. Oh hey, Price! Thanks for helping, mate. Thanks for helping after we did everything. Private Price.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
The tank in the end makes it seem like you have to do something, but nope. You can just escape without having done anything. Right, 2 levels to go. The team demands that I take 1 shot here, which you have to. Furthermore, you have to make many punching kills here for the game to continue, but nothing you haven't done already. The armor in this level really helps. Just make sure that you still have some remaining when you make it here. When Graves is running away, you just have to go for it. You could reach the end while just sprinting. And also here, Graves needs C4 to kill and no bullets. which is great. But the game is not over yet, not really. The idea of walking upside down to kill people is great, but not for... Oh hey, Price! Thanks for helping, mate. Thanks for helping after we did everything. Private Price.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
I mean, I know it's unnecessary, but I love to keep demoting this guy until he is nothing. But I mean, come on, there are so many instances where he just leaves me to do everything, which is bullshit. Whatever, I'm kind of annoyed anyway, because we have to clear 3 floors of enemies, which cost us 12 bullets in total. Now, it would have been 13, but on the first floor you can headshot 2 enemies in 1 bullet. But the real ending boss of the run is this room. I think it's a server room or something. To continue, everyone has to die. But I don't want to fire, of course. So my strategy was to run towards the final room. The second room was quite the problem, so I used a flashbang on the enemies there. In the final room, after countless of tries, I did manage to punch everyone. Now it was close, since I used my last flashbang on the riot shield man, otherwise I would have lost. And these enemies are mandatory to kill. That is literally the objective. But eventually I did. In the upcoming room I thought the mission was over because I got my hands on yet another riot shield. But you lose all your weapons in the end. So it's the crafting thing once again. And we reach the end of the level. Oh no, what's this? Ah, no. To end the game, 1 final shot is required. And yes, I tried to let Soap die, but that's no option. And bam, the last bullet of the game. Man, this run was frustrating for the wrong reasons. Yes, it was difficult in parts, but my frustrations came mostly because I couldn't finish the stupid challenge I had set myself. The ending result is this. 25 bombs and 2 bullets were necessary in the plane levels, and 35 bullets were necessary in the rest of the game. I am still waiting on a Call of Duty game where shooting is unnecessary, but that doesn't mean that these runs become any less interesting. Now, if you've made it all the way to the end, you are amazing. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and also be sure to see my Black Ops 2 no shooting video. It's a really good video in my opinion. Now this has been yet another obscure video game run, so until next time I'd say, take care.